Prime Minister Abe, as interpreted. I, too, feel profound resentment. When thinking of fear and real disappointment of this victim, I am just speechless. We will investigate in a vigorous manner under the Japanese jurisdiction, in mind with the Japanese laws. This offender who committed this self-centered and absolutely despicable crime. With regard to the Japanese investigation process, during our discussion, President Obama assured me that the U. S side will offer full support as we move forward. The entire Japan was deeply shocked due to this most recent case. And as I said earlier, for myself, I conveyed to the President that such feelings of the Japanese people should be taken to heart sincerely. I also requested that the United States vigorously and strictly address the situation. Including making sure to take effective and thorough measures to prevent recurrence. On the status of forces agreement, when facing issues. We will steadily realize the visible improvement in concrete terms as for each and every issue that we face. And by doing so, we will achieve results, one after another. In a steady manner, in parallel with such steady efforts. My view is that we both make efforts and persistently pursue the most appropriate form of the regime. Based on the status of forces agreement and related arrangements. As a result of the case in Okinawa, people in Okinawa feel strong sense of uneasiness in light of their security situation. My intention is to thoroughly implement measures to prevent crimes. And ensure safety and peace of mind among the people in Okinawa. So I already gave the instruction to my Chief Cabinet Secretary to consider such measures in a timely manner. Securing lives and property of the Japanese people is my responsibility as Prime Minister. I am determined to take every possible means so that such tragic case is never to be repeated. Question: Thank you very much, Mr. President and Mr. Prime Minister. Mr. President. On this trip you are confronting old war zones and the use of American military might in them. This week, you also crossed into sovereign Pakistani territory. Where you did not have permission to operate, in order to kill the leader of the Taliban. After expanding the use of the drone program as you have. Are you worried at all about handing it over to the next president? Could I also ask what your response is to the Chinese warnings this week that the U. S and its partners in this region may be creating a tinderbox that would lead to regional conflict? And, Mr. Prime Minister, if you would also reflect on that, I would appreciate it. Could you also tell us a little bit about what you think the President's visit to Hiroshima means to the Japanese people? And will you also consider a trip to Pearl Harbor, sir? Thank you. President Obama, before I answer your questions, Christie, let me just touch on the points that were made earlier about the Okinawa case. Because this has shaken up, I think, people in Okinawa as well as people throughout Japan. I want to emphasize that the United States is appalled by any violent crime that may have occurred or been carried out by any U.S. personnel or U.S. contractors. We consider it inexcusable. And we are committed to doing everything that we can to prevent any crimes from taking place of this sort. And that involves reviewing procedures and making sure that everything that can be done to prevent such occurrences from happening again are put into place. I think it's important to point out that the SOFA, the Status of Forces Agreement, does not in any way prevent the full prosecution and the need for justice under the Japanese legal system. And we will be fully cooperating with the Japanese legal system in prosecuting this individual and making sure that justice is served. And we want to see a crime like this prosecuted here the same way that we would feel horrified and want to provide a sense of justice to a victim's family back in the United States. So I think the Japanese people should know how deeply moved we are by what has happened. And our intention to make sure that we're working with the Japanese government to not only prosecute this crime but to prevent crimes like this from happening again. Christy, with respect to your broader question, I wasn't entirely clear on the parallel you were trying to draw. As Commander-in-Chief and President of the United States, my job is to protect the American people. I wish that never involves us having to take military actions. That's not the world we live in. Obviously, there are very few parallels between the deployment of 500 000 troops to Vietnam and us taking strikes against terrorists who are trying to kill our troops. Who are stationed in Afghanistan or potentially carry out actions in the homeland. But I think that what might be a useful lesson to draw from the trip that I just took to Afghanistan or to Vietnam. Rather is the extraordinary opportunities that have presented themselves through the diplomacy that we've been engaged in over the last 7 years, and the fact that former adversaries are now working in partnership to provide economic opportunities to both of our peoples, to expand trade and commerce. To educate those remarkable young people that were in the town halls that we met today. And I am investing enormous amounts of time and energy and resources into those. Kinds of diplomatic initiatives because, to the extent that they're successful, that shrinks areas of conflict, reduces the necessity of engaging in military action. But, at the end of the day, it is still going to be a dangerous world and there are going to still be times where are you? Fighting forces have to be deployed or have to take actions. And we have to do so in a way that is prudent, that is proportional. And that is mindful of the fact that any kinetic action, no matter how targeted and how justified, also can create tragedy. And one of the things that I hope to reflect on when I'm Hiroshima. And certainly something I reflected on when I was in Vietnam, is just a reminder that war involves suffering. And we should always do what we can to prevent it. but, as I said early on in my presidency when I was in Oslo for the Nobel Peace Prize, I am the president of a nation that at times is threatened by very real risks, not imaginary risks. And it's important for us to act on occasion in order to make sure that the American people are protected. My answer sounds so much longer in translation. So, just very briefly, on China. Our growing partnership with Vietnam is happening entirely independent from China. And is based on mutual interests to expand trade. To expand cooperation across a whole range of areas, and is 30 years in the making now. So the fact that China would perceive that as some sort of provocation to them, think says more about Chinese attitudes than it says anything about our attitudes. The tensions between China and Vietnam, or China and the Philippines. Or China and other claimants in the South China Sea are not of our making. And we would very much like to see a peaceful resolution of those disputes. What's preventing that from happening is not anything we're doing. We would welcome China and Vietnam having a conversation and being able to resolve those disputes. We're not taking a position on those claims. So it's entirely within China's power to resolve those disputes. And our goal with respect to our own interest in the South China Sea is simply to maintain freedom of navigation. Freedom of overflight. And the maintenance of international rules and norms because we think that benefits everybody, including China. Prime Minister Abe, as interpreted. With regard to China, we certainly welcome the peaceful rise of China. And what we have been advocating for vis-a-vis the situation in this region is as follows, namely, three-pronged principles. First, if you are to make a claim, you have to make a claim based on international law. And also, second, you should never intimidate others through the use of force or coercion. Or you should not unilaterally change the status quo. And third, you should settle the disputes in a peaceful manner in accordance with international law. With regard to President Obama's visit to Hiroshima, I'd like to touch on this. "71 years ago, back in 1945, 2 atomic bombs were dropped. And in Hiroshima, numerous citizens sacrificed their lives. And even now there are those of us suffering because of the atomic bombing. And what those Japanese people suffering from the atomic. Bomb desiring is never to repeat such tragedy in the world. And I understand that the upcoming visit by President Obama to Hiroshima will no doubt create further powerful momentum towards realizing a world free of nuclear weapons. At this moment, I don't have any specific plan to visit Hawaii. However, last year, when we marked the 70th anniversary of the end of the Second World War, one made an official visit to the United States. During my visit to the United States last year, I had an opportunity to deliver a speech to the joint houses of the U.S. Congress. And on that occasion, I sincerely reflected on the past and expressed my sincere sense, and also I highlighted the fact that former adversaries are now transforming into the relationship of allies. As the United States and Japan as we stand at this moment. And also, during my visit to the United States, I had a chance to visit the Second World War Memorial. Where I laid a wreath to pray for the souls of all the war dead.